Everybody has their own opinion on Jackson Pollock. Artist or fraud, whether you like his work and find beauty in it or just see it as a hot mess, then that's okay. You're entitled to your own opinion. I'm not here to change your mind and force you to like him, but for the next minutes or so, I want you to at least consider him and to look past the disarray of paint drips, but to take a deep look in his process and movement. To have an understanding on Pollock's work, it is important for us to discuss abstract expressionism and how this connects to his art. Abstract expressionism was America's first major avant-garde movement. As European emigres entered post-war America to escape war-torn Europe, they brought with them their modern avant-garde styles, and it didn't take long for Americans to embrace this and create a movement of their own. Painters under this movement created work that encapsulated their emotions and psyche, without the need of visual cues as allegories to their emotion. As Mark Rothko states it, we assert man's absolute emotions. We don't need props or legends. We create images whose realities are self-evident. Rothko, like many artists in this movement, believed in extreme emotions without the interference of visual scenery. It wasn't about digging through visual clues of subjects and trying to understand how The Bedroom by Van Gogh conveys his loneliness. No, instead, abstract expressionism was raw. What you see is what you get. And the only way to actually understand it was by looking at it without nostalgic glasses of history. Okay, so let's remove these glasses and try to look at Jackson Pollock and his infamous drip paintings. Even in our utter confusion when looking at his drip paintings, Jackson Pollock was a genius in his own right. He may not have been the one who created the technique of drip painting, but his work and process innovated and expanded drip painting's capacity beyond the canvas. In his own way of doing drip paintings, he didn't stretch out his canvas on a frame. Instead, he placed them on the floor and used sticks, knives, trowels, mechanical, enamel paint, and other mediums used at home or for construction work for most of his paintings. He answers abstract expressionism by bringing out his expression through movement and the act of painting itself, making his work an epitome of gestural abstract expressionism. Even if he refined his movement and style with his action paintings, to most of us, the end product looks like a hot mess of paint. For Pollock, his movement and style was bringing life to his painting, giving his work a life of its own. When questioned on his technique, Pollock answered, "The painting has a life of its own. I try to let it come through. It is only when I lose contact with the painting that it becomes a mess." His work was a mix of spontaneous and choreographed movement, that even in his own process, even if his strokes may have been planned, it was still free form. The movement of his wrist might have pointed the direction of where the paint will go, but on how these strokes were to be placed and done in order were not listed down, but free and flow in that moment of creation. Pollock created art that for him didn't only focus on the end product, but also focused on the avant-garde process as well. He immersed himself deeply to its process, that we not only see strokes, but Pollock himself moving and dancing along the canvas in front of us, which makes him part of the art as well. Emphasizing the importance of his process, Pollock always believed that he painted out of the unconscious. His deep interest in Carl Jung's theory on the collective unconscious was always linked to his belief in improvisation and his creative movements. But in painting out of the unconscious, it makes us question Pollock more rather than understanding his work. We not only question if his process and imagery of the unconscious was correct, but if his unconscious can be characterized itself. And even if it were real that Pollock was painting out of his unconscious, what unconscious is this? What is it structured upon? Does Pollock's life, intertwined with historic events and cultural changes, shape his unconscious? If so, how does his unconscious respond to this through his work? Even when we figure out what his unconscious is, we still wouldn't be looking at the key to understanding Pollock and his work. The importance in understanding Pollock's work is not figuring out how his unconscious and psyche is linked to Jung's theory, but instead it's an understanding how this theory has a big influence in Pollock's beliefs and representations in his paintings, and how it served him and his audience. such as what ideas of Jung's theory influenced Pollock to paint out of the unconscious through drips of paint and not shapes or defined strokes, and how all of this makes us feel. When looking at and in understanding his work, Pollock tells us not to look for, but to look passively. That instead of looking for the answer or message in his work, we should get lost in it and accept what his work is giving us. To accept the choreographed chaos of paint and mixed media all over his canvas. To observe as his work transforms from being simple drips of paint to a piece of Pollock's history and life as it records his movement and his process. And to see how all of this transcends from the four corners of the canvas when we follow his movement, and see it kind of like a dance happening right in front of us. Even if you find his work profound or just a complete mess, isn't the point. Looking for what you like or don't isn't the goal of this piece, but to experience and consider it. To consider that his work is more than dried paint, but actual movement, and to consider Pollock as an important piece in abstract expressionism in America. For us to experience Pollock's creative process right in front of us as we follow each stroke, and in the end, see not only a work of art, but Jackson Pollock himself.